just going to share my screen just now so that we can get started on the slides, and I'll go through all of the housekeeping and all of our agenda. We're going to introduce ourselves as well, and I'll tell you a little bit about the HR service before we get moving. So give me 2 seconds to just bring up the slides. I've done that in the complete wrong order. Sorry. Awkward silence, awkward silence. Okay, here we go. So welcome to today's webinar on employee leave essentials, what employers need to know. The session today is brought to you by SCVO's HR service. We are going to just talk about a little bit of housekeeping, and I'm going to introduce you to the rest of the team as well. And you'll see on there a little bit about what the HR service is, what we do, and our contact details. So if you do want to have a chat to us, you can do it using the email address hrservice@scvo.scot. So today is mostly going to be instructional, but we encourage you to ask questions and get involved in the discussion. If you do have a question, there will be a Q&A at the final 10 to 15 minutes. But if there's any particularly relevant question throughout the webinar, my colleague Amy is going to stop me to go over it. We're also more than happy to answer your questions via email once the session has ended. So if you have specific questions, let us know via email, and our address, as you can see, is on the slide. If you need to use or want to use captions, there's a button along the menu at the bottom of the screen. Here you'll also find the options to raise your hand to ask a question, and to react with emojis, or unmute and mute your microphone. For now, please ensure that all microphones are muted. So SCVO's HR service launched back in 2020, and we've become a popular destination of support for voluntary organisations across Scotland. Subscribers to the service contact us when they need to, and we're always delighted to have a conversation and get to the root of the issue. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do get in touch to find out more if you feel it would be of value. We provide practical, informed, solution-focused advice. And this is our 4th session, so the advice is sort of developed into these free to attend webinars, which we really enjoy putting on, and as I said, it's our 4th session. You can find some more of these past sessions on our YouTube channel, which there will be a link for shortly in the chat. Before we get started with the webinar, we'll introduce ourselves. So I'm Lorna. I've worked with SCVO since 2020, and the inception of the HR service. I've got almost 10 years experience in HR and love being able to advise on really tricky issues that end up leading to a positive outcome. It's really fulfilling to know that in some small way we can make your lives a little bit easier in the sector, by talking to you about these issues. I will pass over to Amy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Graham. I work with Lorna in the HR service. I've been with SCVO since the end of July, and I really like meeting with and supporting the voluntary sector in terms of the organisations that we meet with. And like Lorna, we support a range of issues. We're always happy if somebody wants to get in touch with us at any point. Hand over to Caroline now.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Caroline Christie, and I'm the HR manager at SCVO, and I've worked here for a long time, for almost 20 years. So I love working with Amy and Lorna, and I really love what the HR service does, providing practical, non-judgmental HR support to help you avoid difficult situations and to help you get out of difficult situations. And I'm really looking forward to the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, so I'm going to move into the main part of the presentation. I can no longer see anything. So Amy, if there's any questions in the chat, any point you want to stop me, just interrupt. All good, we'll cover the question. So today's agenda, our objectives for today. We're going to be covering a lot, so you might find that we're going to stay at a fairly high level rather than delving deep into the detail. We will in some parts, but mainly cover kind of high level stuff. We're going to talk about statutory leave and contractual leave, I promise we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at annual leave calculations and how to do it when it gets complicated, or even just the simplest of ways. It's something that we don't love in HR either, but it's an important one to know how to do. So we're going to cover that as well. We're going to look at implementing the policies in real life and why it's important to record leave accurately. And we're also going to look at a case study. So we'll put you into breakout rooms for that. Hopefully we'll have a good 10 to 15 minutes to do that discussion. And finally, we'll have a Q&A before winding up the session. We're going to send a link to the recording of today's session along with the slides and any additional resources that we've mentioned after the session has ended, probably in a couple of days. We're also happy to provide template policies relating to employee leave should you request them. So in our follow-up email, we're going to send a condensed template of kind of all the different types of leave that you can cover in a policy, nice and simple if you're a really small organization and you don't need a whole bunch of information and lots of detail. We'll send that. But if you do want to access kind of more individual template policies, we're more than happy to send those to you who have been in attendance today, whether or not you are a member. Okay, so in these sessions, I always like to just give a bit of context why we've chosen this topic to talk about of all the different topics we could talk about. And I'll do that while you get to look at a nice picture of the sea. I feel like leave is often overlooked as a simple part of the employee journey. Truthfully, it can actually get really complicated. As employers, you're expected to know how to manage maternity leave, shared parental leave, calculate holiday entitlement for people who work irregular hours, as well as make decisions on compassionate leave and know how to deal with all other types of leave. Simply put, it's just not that simple. So lots of our subscribers get in touch with queries relating to leave. And so we've put together this session with the aim of giving you more confidence in implementing both the statutory rights of your employees and understanding what's possible in terms of contractual leave. So that's what we're going to start with, is looking at statutory and contractual leave. Firstly, statutory leave. So this is the legal minimums that you must provide as an employer. I'm not going to go into too much detail of every bullet point, as there's lots of information available on the government website and as well through ACAS. All of these entitlements are the maximum available. There's a couple of stipulations in there, but in terms of what's available as a statutory right, it goes up to these numbers. But they don't have, many of them don't have to be taken in full. There are certain eligibility criteria as well to mention, which I'm going to do now. So for annual leave, 5.6 weeks is the legal minimum, and this can include public holidays. So it's not a case of 5.6 weeks off, but you have to also include public holidays. The number includes that already. Many organizations choose to have the 5.6 weeks and also public holidays in addition to that, but it's not a legal requirement. The maternity leave entitlement is made up of 26 weeks ordinary maternity leave and 26 weeks additional maternity leave. The difference is about what rights are available during each period. For ordinary maternity leave, or the first 26 weeks, all employment rights are retained, including the right to return to the same job. In additional maternity leave, if it isn't reasonably practicable to return to the same job, a suitable alternative must be offered with similar terms and conditions. For eligible employees, 39 weeks statutory maternity pay is also available. Statutory paternity pay is available for 2 weeks if criteria is met. And statutory adoption pay is available for up to 39 weeks and is at the same rate as maternity and paternity pay. Statutory parental bereavement pay is available for up to 2 weeks following the death of a child under 18 or a stillbirth or miscarriage after 24 weeks of pregnancy. Naturally, that's never going to feel like enough. Lots of organisations choose to go over and above that to have a contractual offer for this type of leave, but the legal minimum is what is required here. Then we have neonatal care leave. This is something that has been introduced in the past few months, actually, and is, again, it's paid at the same rate as other parental leave types, but is available in addition to the other parental leave entitlements. So you have up to 52 weeks of maternity leave. On top of that, if required, you have 12 weeks of neonatal care leave if a newborn baby needs hospital treatment, needs to stay in the hospital after it's been born, then neonatal care leave can be used for that. There's also unpaid parental leave. This is for up to 18 weeks per child until they are 18 years old. There's a further limit on 4 weeks per child per year. So it can be 18 weeks over the course of the 18 years, but in any 1 year, they can only take up to 4 weeks. And this is for employees with at least a year's service. Time off for dependents is reasonable unpaid time off to deal with emergencies, including involving dependents. This isn't limited to children. It could be elderly relatives or people that you care for as well. This would typically be for a day or two, though would be measured reasonably on a case-by-case basis. Compassionate leave is not a statutory right, but has become common practice. It's similar to time off for dependents in that there's no obligation to pay for this time, but many employers choose to. Employees also have a right to time off to fulfill public duties, including jury service or local council positions. And finally, eligible employees also have a right to statutory sick pay for up to 28 weeks. Whistle-stop tour there of statutory leave entitlements. Contractual leave. So contractual leave is time off from work agreed upon in an employee's contract over and above the required legal minimums. This can cover anything and everything. Of course, any additional paid leave that is offered, it should be affordable and sustainable for the organisation. But offering over and above the statutory leave entitlements can be a big factor in employees staying with the organisation for a long time. It can be a really good thing for your retention rates. The list includes some typical options and some radical ideas. For example, typical options include enhanced leave and pay for things like maternity, paternity, and annual leave. Less standard options, but becoming more popular, are fertility leave if your employees are going through IVF, mental health days, and time off when an employee gets or loses a pet. At SCVO, we have a wellness week every month where staff are encouraged to take a longer lunch to do something that is good for our well-being. It's a nice example, I think, of what could be possible for organisations in the voluntary sector where budgets and resources are tight. So these sorts of radical ideas aren't really within our reach, but employee well-being is a priority. So there's something that meets in the middle. There's something that we can do that goes a little bit of the way to prioritise that well-being. More radical options include passion or purpose leave and climate or sustainability leave. So purpose or passion leave, it could be for an individual who has chosen to be child-free. So instead of, although of course maternity leave is in no way a holiday, it enables that person to take time off to write a book or to go traveling or to just do whatever they want to pursue their passion. And also with climate or sustainability leave, they can take time off to take part in activism or to volunteer for charities that are working towards the sustainability or part of the climate emergency sort of work. Ultimately, both of these things are actually just more modern versions of career breaks and volunteering time, but it could be more appealing to the younger workforce or attracting a wider breadth of applicants to your jobs if they are renamed something that's a wee bit more modern. If you'd like to talk to us at all about contractual leave options, please feel free to get in touch. You had our email at the beginning of the session. I'm sure Amy will be able to stick our email address again into the chat. And of course, if there's any questions throughout today, we've got the Q&A at the very end, or if you have a pressing question, please just feel free to stick it in the chat. So again, very whistle-stop tour of the statutory and contractual leave types and the difference between the two. I'm going to move straight into annual leave calculations, which I've tried to keep as simple as possible. If you're at all like me and maths is not your strong point, then you'll receive the slides with all of these mathematical things on them. And of course, we're happy to talk to you about annual leave calculations. We can't really go into specific examples. So if you have questions that are specific to your organisation in relation to annual leave, please get in touch with us separately so that we can help you. Because I, for one, certainly cannot do mathematical calculations in my head. So the first thing we're going to do is calculate in days. So as we said right at the start with statutory leave entitlements, the minimum or the kind of minimum maximum leave available in annual leave is 28 days, which equals 5.6 weeks. So if we are calculating annual leave entitlement in days, we want to multiply the number of days worked by 5.6. So as I said, 5.6 is relative to the number of weeks. So 28 days is the annual leave entitlement, which equates to 5.6. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 2, 4, 6, 28. That's how I calculate it anyway, nice and simplistic. If you offer more time off, this number will increase. So for example, if you offer 42 days off, that will then become 8.4 weeks. So then we move on to actually calculating the specific annual leave entitlement for an individual. So if someone works 3 days per week, we'd be doing 3 times 5.6, and that equals 16.8 days off of holiday per year. Now, 0.8 is almost is almost 17 days. So we tend to round that up. You certainly can't round down. You can round up, or you can do it in a different way where we calculate in hours. Now, calculating in hours is another option. If you have a staff where everyone is working different flexible working arrangements, you have people on condensed hours, you have people doing variable hours each day, you have someone doing a 9-day fortnight, all of the hours are quite different. So calculating it in days can be really quite complex and actually maybe quite inaccurate. So there's the option of calculating it in hours. So in this case, we'd multiply the number of hours worked rather than the number of days by 5.6. Again, if you offer more time off, this number will increase. So for example, if someone works 16 hours per week, it's 16 times 5.6, and that's 89.6 hours. Like we said with days, this would generally be rounded up to 90 hours. It cannot be rounded down. So calculating in hours can often be more accurate, again, like I've said, for those who work different working patterns. For example, condensed hours, 9-day fortnight, or variable hours, which makes calculating it by day inaccurate. So those are your sort of typical calculating in hours and days for those who work regular hours. These are the same number of hours every week. They have a permanent contract, they have a fixed term contract, but they work the same hours each week, whatever pattern that is in the week. There's also calculating the hours for those who work irregular hours. Now, this is how I often look when I'm trying to calculate holiday entitlement for people who work irregular hours. So I fully understand that it's not going to be a favourite of anyone's to try and figure out. So it's kind of gone a bit back and forth over recent years as to how we calculate hours for those with irregular working patterns. But it seems to most recently that we've settled on the 12.07% method. Now, this is based on the idea that statutory annual leave in the UK is 5.6 weeks, as I've mentioned, out of a full working year of 46.4 weeks. So that is 52 weeks minus 5.6 weeks of leave. That equals 46.4 weeks. So for every hour or day that someone works, they earn 12.07% of that time as paid holiday. Excuse me. So how do we do this? First of all, we're tracking how many hours are worked, and we multiply those hours by 12.07, or 0.1207. And the result is the number of paid holiday hours that they have earned. So we are looking at, for example, they have worked 40 hours in a period. We're doing 40 times by 12.07 or 0.1207. And that will equal the number of paid holidays that they've earned. In order to calculate what to pay them, we keep track again of how many hours have been worked. And we use the calculation on the slide to identify the number of holiday hours that they've accrued. So what we've just been through, you get that number, and then you multiply the holiday hours by the employee's hourly rate to get their holiday pay. So we generally do this per period, depending on what kind of contract they've got. Rolled up holiday pay can also be done again. So there was a period in which this was unlawful, but the legislation has shifted and rolled up holiday pay can be used again for those with 0 hours contracts, term time contracts, as long as it's appropriate to be used. So calculating what their annual leave entitlement is, their rate of pay, and then distributing their holiday pay over the course of 12 months so that they get it in incremental periods rather than at the time that they take it. So everything that I've said there might come across as total gobbledygook, and it's difficult to take in, and actually might just take a few times for you to look over the slides to sort of understand how it all works. And many of you will probably have systems that do all of this for you. But I think it's a good thing to understand the methods behind everything, so that if one day we have a power cut and you have to do annual leave calculations on your own, then you've got some kind of information as to how it all works, you know, God forbid. But that is the sort of theory behind it all. Of course, there will be more complicated situations where it is difficult to calculate, but that's the sort of basis of how everything works. Again, if you have specific questions about annual leave entitlements, we're more than happy to help, but contact us separately so that we can go through it in detail with you. Amy, any questions before I move on to the next part?
There's no questions. Alan has said that his organisation recently moved to a 4-day week with no loss of pay, and these calculations became even more complex.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had considered putting something in about 4-day weeks, but I just didn't want to overwhelm all of you with information. So yeah, it does get pretty complicated. And with everyone, if you have an organization, for example, at SCVO, so many of us have flexible working requests. We're all working different working patterns. So calculating the annual leave does get pretty complicated. So I hope that process went well. But yeah, I totally understand. Very, very complicated. Okay, I'm going to move past that. You will get a copy of all of these slides, so you'll have all of these calculations to look at again. And I said, more than happy to help with any specific questions. Implementing leave policies. So here's a bit of a statement, and then I'll explain it. So clear and transparent policies that explain how leave should be requested and how it will be approved will make it easy for employees to understand their rights and responsibilities. With so many types of leave, it's really important to make policies clear and accessible for your teams to use. Line managers should also have a good understanding of what the processes look like, and there should be a tracking system that allows you to record leave accurately. Excuse me. Introducing your policies to new staff during the onboarding process is a great way to let them know straight away how things work and where to find the policies for future reference. Keeping up to date with legislation changes is really important, and this is where we come in. We send out regular bulletins with information on things like this for our subscribers, as well as we keep our downloadable templates legally compliant. For our subscribers, we also review policies all the time to make sure that they're up to date. So if you don't need a new policy, you have one, but you're not sure that they're legally compliant, we're more than happy to help and review those policies for you as subscribers to the service. I think there should be a link in the chat to our A to Z of policy templates that are available to download from our website. It is not an exhaustive list, and some of the things that you'll find on there are not strictly HR, it's all of the downloadable content that's there. But you will find several different types of leave policy. If anything's missing or you think that you'd like to access something else that's related to leave, again, please feel free to get in touch and we're more than happy to share that with you. Recording leave. So why is recording leave important? Well, it obviously keeps everything on track, but recording it accurately is also very important. So the first point, if someone becomes ill while they're on holiday, it's possible that they can claim the time back if they follow the correct procedures. So this will include following the sickness absence reporting procedure and informing you, their employer, as soon as possible and providing a sick note if they're unwell for more than 7 days. By recording this accurately, it ensures that both your absence records are correct for any future issues to be dealt with, and your employees can use annual leave for its purpose to relax and recuperate. Sorry, just taking another drink. So for organizations where there are several managers, it's important or it's possible, excuse me, that they might all approach leave differently. They might make decisions differently about how to record something or how to manage something. But it's important to have a consistent approach, which is why the policies exist. And all employees will then have a fair and standard experience. If someone's been unwell a few times over the year, but it's been recorded inaccurately, so for example, they were on annual leave, but it wasn't changed, it stops us being able to manage the situation effectively. So we did an absence management webinar not that long ago, which went into more detail about these sorts of instances. And we talk a little bit more about recording things accurately to then be able to manage a situation effectively. So if you'd like to go back to watch that webinar, is available, and I think the link for that should be in the chat for you to go back and watch. I may say so myself, but I think it was a good one. Okay. The load of information that I've shared over the past 20 minutes or so, and now I kind of want to move on to look at the case study. I'll stop for 2 seconds before doing that, just to check over if there are any questions to cover. Again, we'll have the Q&A session at the end, but if there's any sort of pertinent ones, we can deal with that now. No questions? Okay. Amy or Caroline, is there anything that you'd sort of add to why it's important to record things, or kind of anything else that I've covered before moving on to the case study?
Amy, do you want to go?
A question's just popped in, Lorna, before we go on to that. So somebody's asked, can you just confirm again that if someone has been off, if someone is sick on annual leave, they have their annual leave back?
It depends on the circumstances, but they can request it. So if they have, so let's say I'm on 2 weeks off. I've woken up 2 days into my annual leave and I'm really unwell. I'm not well at all. There's no point in me being on annual leave. The first thing I'm going to do is call Caroline and say I'm not well, and follow the same absence management procedures that I would normally. If I was at work, I'd be calling her to let her know. So it's the same situation if I'm on annual leave. I call, let them know, and the records are changed to state that I'm now on sick leave, I'm not on annual leave. There's more details in that, and there's information on the ACAS page about how to go about doing it. But as long as that person has followed the same reporting procedures, the records can be changed to say you're now on sick leave, you're no longer on annual leave, you can claim that back and use your annual leave at a later date. Any other questions?
My question isn't a question, it's just a further statement about how important recording leave correctly. So the example I always think of is when somebody is at work and they're maybe not feeling well, so they ask if they can take a half day of holiday and go home early. That's okay as a one-off. But if that starts to happen on a regular basis and you're agreeing that that's annual leave, half days of annual leave all the time, you're less able to then manage that situation. So if somebody isn't well enough to work, you should really record it as sickness absence, because you don't know what's going to happen further down the line.
Yep, absolutely. Really good point. Okay, if there aren't more questions, then it gives us plenty of time to look at this case study, which I fear I've made far too complicated for you, but I think it's important to kind of get a full picture as to what could come along for you to consider. Okay, this is your case study. What we're going to do is, more than kind of trying to solve any of this, you don't have to come up with the answers. It's more about just what the questions at the bottom of the case study for you to consider. So you don't need to say, oh, I would give this person the time off, I would do this or do that. It's more about how you would manage the situation in reality. So I'll read over it. You are the operations manager at a small charity with about 20 employees. There's a big funding review going on just now, and a new campaign is also about to launch. Alex adopted a child 6 months ago and has applied for shared parental leave. They've also given the 8 weeks of notice required to take that parental leave for a period of 12 weeks. Alex's role is difficult to cover without specific training. Priya booked annual leave 6 months ago to take a 2-week trip abroad and overlaps slightly with Alex's shared parental leave. She is leading on the campaign. Jordan has requested emergency time off for dependents after their partner was taken ill. They've requested 3 days, but it could be extended, and Jordan is the funding coordinator. And Sam is an administrator and has just returned from long-term sick leave and is on a phased return of 3 days per week on reduced duties. So lots of different things happening all at once in a small charity. Oh my goodness, what on earth do we do? But these are the main questions that you want to consider. So what are your legal obligations? Is there any flexibility here? How can the charity maintain service delivery and employee well-being with limited resources? What communication would help manage expectations and maintain trust? What longer-term strategies, for example, training or approaching flexibility in a different way, could help build resilience in the future? I know it's a complicated case study, but hopefully we'll give you some insight. What I'm going to do is put you into breakout rooms, and I'll give you a period of 10 minutes to have a chat about it. What you could do if you want to, rather than thinking about all 4 of those questions, maybe if I put you into breakout rooms 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'll look at the corresponding question. So if you're in breakout room 1, you can look at question 1. And that might make things a little bit simpler so that you're not having to cover the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just try to figure out a way, if I can keep that up and you're in I didn't think about this. Once I put you into breakout rooms, you may now not be able to see the slide, which isn't helpful. But I'll try and figure it out. So I'm going to just stop sharing quite quickly before I put you into rooms. You can have a chat about it. I'm going to put you into 4 rooms, and I'm going to not put us in the rooms so that you can just have a free chat. These things always take longer than you want them to. Chat amongst yourselves. Okay. I'm going to open up the rooms. It'll be about 10 minutes that you'll have to have a little chat about it, and I will send you I'll send a link to the case study for you, so that you can read it during the time in the room. So I'll open the rooms just now, and I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. going to put the case study in the chat so that they can see it. No, it's too many characters. I'll do it in 2 parts.
Yeah, and I think we checked in a webinar we did before that you can still see the chat when you're in the
chat. Yeah, I'll do a broadcast so that they know it's in the chat.
Yeah. And it is Ilona going into breakout room.
Yeah, I'm gonna move her because Jen's in there on her own.
Oh,
Jen, I'm going to move to room 4.
is that HR for Creatives, Jen?
No, I think Jen will be on maternity leave now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's moved now to room 4, so she's joined, and it's just Carolina who's here, but she's not moved. She's obviously away from her desk.
Yeah, I think she did go in and then came back out. Maybe she doesn't want to be in a room. That's fair enough. Yeah. It's well done, Lorna. It's going good.
Yeah, I think the timings are also pretty good. It gives them plenty of time to have a look at the breakout room and have a chat.
Yep. So 10:48
Yes.
is 10 minutes.
Excellent.
And
I think I'd obviously previously set the timer for 10 minutes, so that's on anyway for the breakout.
Okay, cool. Great.
Lorna, see when you started going over this case study, there was a question that popped in the chat.
Oh, right, okay, I'll have a look.
It's from Sam.
Yeah, I had a look at that. It's about reasonable adjustments.
Yeah.
So I can answer that if you want me to answer that. So I don't think there are any guidelines. I think you would follow occupational health person's advice, listen to the individual, and make what adjustments you can make, but they do have to be reasonable. So it could be a phased return. I think if you've been off for 2 months, your phased return would maybe be a week or 2 weeks. Maybe a very temporary change in duties. And I can say a bit about how you record phased returns as well, because that's a different type of time off. Another type of time off.
I think that was a really good thing to go over. How do you record that?
Definitely.
You're doing really well, Lorna.
Thanks. I think when you just get into
the
rhythm of it, it just happens. So yeah, no, I'm quite glad that it's actually pretty perfect for the timing, because you think, oh God, I'm going through this so quickly. Are they actually able to pick any of it up? But you know, it's I think, of course they can. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great because it's about more than the different types of leave. It's about how you manage it and how you implement it. So yeah, it's great.
Excellent.
Very well designed. Yeah. It's tough though, isn't it? Talking. It's not very, it doesn't, you make it sound and seem so natural, but it's hard.
It's mainly just the voice getting tired, and I'm like, oh, am I gonna cough? But I think the more you do it, the more confident you are, and just say, I'm just gonna have to drink water for a second.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do now.
You know, I'm glad it's payday tomorrow.
Me too. 2 days early.
Yes.
Nice.
I love it when it falls just before a weekend.
See, I do and I don't, because then I feel like I've got an extra weekend to spend it.
Well, yeah, I know that's why I love it, Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think I did go through all our, I think I've been through the whole of the year's calendar to work out when we get paid early. Because when we get paid early, we also have to do the payroll early as well. So we need to kind of know in advance. So we're not, October we'll get paid on Friday the 24th.
Okay.
I think that's the next one.
Not too far away. Not that I'm wishing the year away.
I know.
I think I've decided that I'm gonna buy a new work bag.
Where are you getting it from?
See, I don't know. I've asked a whole bunch of people what they prefer. I really like the Roca bags.
Yeah, my sister's got one of them.
Different colours.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few other people have said, I can't remember what they're called now, but yeah, I don't mind spending a bit of money on it because I've been using the one I've got for 10 years. So it's, you know, it's worth an investment in like a new one that's a bit bigger. So I did buy one from Captain and Son. But I found that the straps were really quite smooth. So when you had them tightly up so that it would sit highly on your back, it slipped down because the straps were so smooth. So that's sort of my main thinking point, is it's got to have sturdy straps.
Yeah, the Roca ones are good. My one's lasted, I think I've had mine for 3 years now. And I've put it in the washing machine a couple of times as well, and it's been fine. And it's big enough for a laptop and other things as well.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. That's all I really want. Big enough for a laptop. It's got room for a water bottle, and it's got a bit of room for a lunchbox.
Yeah. That's one thing about it actually. The pockets, the side pockets are quite tight. So it has to be quite a slim water bottle to fit into the side pockets.
This is the issue, is when you're buying you have to buy it online, and it's hard to kind of know is it big enough, and you get all of the sort of measurements, but it's not an easy situation where you kind of need to try it out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the shop on Broughton Street, it has them. They have you can actually go in and look at them.
I'm sure if there was one that I bought a pair of sunglasses in, they've got nice bags that's on sort of I want to say Victoria Street.
Oh yeah. Yep. Can't remember what it's called, but yeah, there's lots of nice shops there.
Someone has joined the webinar and it's 11:15.
Better late than never, Lorna.
I know. I'm just going to admit them, and I'll just say like we're pretty much on the way through it.
Yeah.
Good morning. I think that you just joined in the webinar just now.
Yes, please.
Hello. Of course, I mean, the webinar has been going on for about 45 minutes, but we're going to kind of come back and discuss a case study that we've been doing, and also we're going to cover a Q&A session. We've also recorded the webinar, so we are going to follow up with a full recording of the session. So anything that you've missed, you will be able to see in the recording.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Everyone's coming back to the room in about a minute, so you won't be on your own. Everyone's coming back just shortly. They've got a minute left, and then they get a 60-second warning before everyone comes back.
The countdown.
The countdown.
You've always got really nice earrings, Lorna.
Thanks. These ones are from like a plant shop, actually. They just had these earrings that I quite liked. Generally, they come from Primark, Amy. All my hoops, just like I'm gonna lose them, so I may as well just get them from Primark. Very sustainable of me. Okay, they've had their 60-second warning, so they'll be back soon. Oh, everyone's sort of coming back. Excellent. Okay, welcome back. I'm just going to wait for everyone to filter through, and I'm going to stick the PowerPoint back up so that we can look at the case study again. I'll always do this and not actually share. Sorry, awkward silence again while I share. Right, we're back to not being able to see anyone again. So, but it's easier for you to be able to see the case study and refer to it. So let me just try and change the view so that I can maybe see a few of you. Excellent. Okay, so it's not necessarily about reporting back and let me know what your answers are or anything. I just kind of really, I'm hoping that this is a kind of helpful thing between you as groups. But if there were any sort of key points that you wanted to feed back on, any sort of thoughts that you had, or actually, whoa, this seemed way too difficult for us to figure out, and kind of think, oh my goodness, how would we deal with this in reality? Just give me your thoughts, anything that you had that came up during the chats in your breakout rooms, if anyone would like to unmute and let us know.
So Caitlin's just put in the chat that our main takeaway was delay the campaign.
Okay, absolutely. It's I think it's a great point to have a think. What are your priorities? What's absolutely vital during the time of this situation where you've got more people off than you can deal with? What are the absolute vital priorities for your organization? What can be delayed? What can you come back to? I think that's a great point. Anything else? Did anything come up around managing employee well-being and thinking about people who are still at work, how you might manage those individuals?
I'll reply to that because we did a bit on that, and we
Excellent.
didn't have the slide, so we had to just sort of wing it a little bit. So sorry, we went off topic a little bit. Yeah, we were talking about the administrator in particular coming back from sick leave and making sure that individual plus any of the other ones that would be working in the wider team didn't get impacted and felt like their workload increased substantially, because making sure that individual was still on that phased return without an overwhelm was important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, really good point, Sue. There was actually a question in the chat just before the breakout rooms. Caroline, I think you were going to cover that for us.
Hi, yeah, it was a question about reasonable adjustments when somebody is returning from sick leave. So the example given in the chat was if someone's been off sick for 2 months. So I think in that situation, there's not much guidance about reasonable adjustments, but you could refer the person to occupational health and then follow the advice of the occupational health specialist. That's one option. You could speak with the person and find out what it is that they really need, and then fully consider what it is you can do to support their return. So the first thing that kind of came to mind is a phased return. So allowing the person to phase back into work gradually rather than coming back on their full hours straight away. So I think if someone's been off sick for 2 months, obviously it depends on the circumstances, why they were off and the person themselves and their job. But I think if someone's been off sick for 2 months, a phased return of a week or maybe 2 weeks seems reasonable to me. The phased return, have a think about how you record the time off within that phased return. So they're going to be working less hours or less days. So have a think about how you're going to record that type of leave. So at SCVO, we record that as a sickness absence, with the reason being phased return. You could ask the person to use their annual leave, or you could ask them to take unpaid leave for that time that they're not working. Yeah, so that's that's one option, the phased return. That could also include a slight change in duties. Hopefully that answers your question. If you have any kind of follow-up questions based on that, please unmute or put it in the chat. One thing I was going to say about the case study is you could consider what in these different leave scenarios, if there's any room for you to negotiate alternative dates. We don't have enough time to get into it right now, but with shared parental leave, there are some circumstances where you can suggest alternative dates. So we'll share a link to the ACAS webpage on that, because that could be an option, renegotiating those dates. Possibly room for some flexibility with the annual leave dates as well. Probably not, but there could be. And with the one point I wanted to make about the emergency time off for dependents, that is meant to be emergency time off. So it's not normally something that you can book in advance, or it's not normally for a period of more than a few days. It is meant to be a short kind of emergency action that you can take the time off work and come back to work as soon as the emergency has been taken care of. But lots of employers are a bit more flexible with that type of leave, including SCVO.
Just looking at the timer on 10:55, were there any other kind of final points that might be worth bringing up or unmuting to discuss relating to the case study before we just move on to a quick 5 minutes of Q&A? Okay. Fine. So excellent. I completely understand. It's a complex one, lots of things to discuss, and we were only able to share the case study in the chat. I'll remember that for next time and send you a link with all the information so that you can refer to it during your 10 minutes. And as I say, you'll get a copy of the slides. So if you want to think about the case study further, then you'll be able to refer to it again when you get the slides. So really, we're just on the final 5 minutes, and we're going to cover off any unanswered questions that are in the chat, or if you have anything that you want to bring up right now, please feel free to unmute or raise your hand. We'll go through them now. We have 4 minutes left of the webinar. Shivali, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, this has been really helpful. My question, I've put it in the chat, is now we're a growing organisation, just wanted to be consistent about how we allocate time for medical appointments and welfare appointments. So we have a flexible hours, and most of the staff, most of the time, manage it around their flexible hours. But what do we do if that's not possible, or if the worker has asked for time off? And again, I am reviewing our leave entitlement policy, so I just want to be consistent and fair. And if we are giving the time off, as I think we should, and we always do we then record it as sickness absence? Because, or do we call it special leave? Or yeah, thoughts, please.
I can answer that if you like, Lorna. Give your voice a rest.
Great, perfect.
So yeah, so that sounds, what you're doing, that sounds like the right thing to do. So yeah, you allow the time off work to attend the appointment. You can record it as a type of sickness absence. So if it's for like a longer hospital appointment or a longer dental appointment, you can record that as a type of sickness absence. You could also, the person could also request annual leave, or annual leave to take the time off, because annual leave is for more things than going on holiday. But yeah, as a good employer, the way that you're managing it is how we do it at SCVO. So you could record it as a type of sickness absence. I have worked for organisations in the past where they allow an hour for any appointments. So if you like an hour where you don't have to book any sort of time off or record it as sickness. So it's like an hour from the organisation, just to make attending appointments a bit easier. And yeah, I think what you're doing is good.
Anything else in the chat that I've not seen? Or any other questions that you'd like to unmute and ask yourselves? We've got 2 minutes. Plenty of time for a question. I must have covered everything in fantastic detail then, so that there's no other questions that need to be asked, which is excellent.
I've got one thing to add at the last minute that we haven't covered, just because I was dealing with this recently. If someone leaves your organisation, they're entitled to be paid for any untaken annual leave that they have. So,
or if they've taken too much annual leave, it can be deducted from their final pay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, it's 10:59. I'm not going to take up more of your time than what is allocated. I really appreciate everyone coming along today. I hope that you've been able to take some good things away from this. If there are any follow-up questions that you think about after we finish today, please feel free. You can email us at hrservice@scvo.scot. I'm more than happy to help with any sort of leave-related questions today, whether or not you are subscribed to the service. But if you would like to discuss subscribing to the service if you're not yet, again, we can talk to you about that via email or set up a call to talk individually about what we can offer and what kind of support that you're looking for. But yeah, thanks again for coming along. Really appreciate it. We'll be doing another session over the next few months, so look out for that. It'll be on the events page. But yep, we're bang on 11 o'clock. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.